Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first workshop in a series of workshops presented by Operation Dignity. My name is Kevin English. I am the Housing and Employment Specialist at Operation Dignity, and I have put together these workshops to help you prepare for independence and when you move into permanent housing. Many of you are only staying here with us at Operation Dignity temporarily, and so the ultimate goal is not to accumulate too much stuff and always be prepared to move out. These moves can come up on you quick, so it's best to be prepared. Anything discussed in this presentation today will be available to be printed for your own use as well. If you're having any trouble, just let your caseworker know and they can get the resources to you. So first, I would like to start with a moving timeline. This timeline is a pretty rough outline of what needs to happen from start to finish with your move, but again, if you're in transitional housing, you may already be doing these things and the timeline isn't perfectly aligned. Not everything on this list will apply to you either, but it's overall a good guideline for how the move will go. This timeline is a rough outline of what needs to happen from start to finish with your move. If you're in transitional housing, you may already be doing many of these things, and the timeline isn't perfectly aligned with what you may be experiencing, but I think overall it's a pretty good guideline of when you should be doing certain things with regards to your move. So 4 weeks before your move, you want to file a change of address with the post office, so any mail you forget to update still ends up where it needs to be. This is also the time that you want to be really thinning down your belongings so the coming weeks will be even easier for you. Make a list of what you want to keep and get rid of. Also, if you have a job, this would be the time in advance that you want to request the days off around your move. Having to work around moving day can add an unnecessary stressor. This is also a time to reiterate that if you're in transitional housing, ultimately you shouldn't accumulate too many possessions because the goal is not that this is your final stop, but that you're still continuing to another destination. So once you're about 3 weeks out, you're going to want to make a list of the important names and phone numbers you'll want to remember. This is obviously something you can do in your phone, but it's good to have in case of emergency. If you have any pets, this is the time when you'd want to be coming up with a plan to get them to wherever you need to. Some places require renter's insurance, so if you do, you could look into setting that up, especially if you have a dog. Some places may require that. And then if you're hiring movers or using friends to help move, you want to make sure you have your plans for moving day on how to get your items from point A to point B and get that solidified so that you're not scrambling last minute. 2 weeks before moving out, you want to begin packing more intensely. You really don't want to be packing on your moving day, so plan accordingly. Also make sure that any services where you currently live are discontinued. This means any power, gas, water, that kind of thing. If you're in transitional housing, there's a good chance you're not currently in charge of those accounts, but regardless, it's still good practice. So 1 week before you move, you want to set aside a bag of important things that you keep with you at all times. This should include your veteran ID, social security card, or other identifying documents, an ID, and whatever else you may need for appointments, such as a medication list, things like that. You can keep this on you at all times on moving weekend to make sure you have your documents not packed away somewhere and be unable to find them if you need them. Then comes moving day. On moving day, make sure you get all your belongings out as quickly as you can to make it an easier process. It may take longer than you anticipate, so getting started early is always key. Make sure you clean up and take photos of the place as you are leaving. When you arrive at your new place, take pictures of everything so you have images of how the unit looked before you moved in case any damages occur in your time there. Make sure all your utilities in the unit are working that you coordinated ahead of time and you'll be all set to get unpacked. The picture thing is very important because you want to make sure that you can get your security deposit back, and oftentimes there can be previous damage that was there, and if you don't document that, send it to yourself in an email, then there's no proof that that happened prior to you moving in, and you might end up getting charged for it. So this is a list of who to contact when you're moving. It can be pretty hard to keep track of who you need to inform and what moving parts are going on. Luckily, we have this list to remind you, and you can check it off as soon as you contact people. As a reminder, if you submit a change of address request with the USPS, anything you don't get from this list will automatically get forwarded to you, and then once you know that it's not on that list, you can always update them. So the first set is professional services. This can include any attorneys or legal groups you're working with, your insurance company, whether it be medical, VA, healthcare, or a private insurance, or Medi-Cal, VA, healthcare, or private insurer. Letting your doctors and insurers know when you move prevents any potential lapses in coverage, and it should be an important piece of mail that you don't want to miss. Make sure all your doctors and insurers know your new address. Next is friends and family. So, when moving, it can be hard to keep track of who you need to contact and whether or not you have already. Luckily, we have this list to remind you, and you can check it off as you contact people. As a reminder, if you submit a change of address request with the USPS, whenever you don't remember to change an address for something, you will then receive it in the mail still, and later down the road, you can change it once you realize that you needed to update it still. So the first set is professional services. This can include attorneys and accountants, insurance companies, doctors, pharmacists, and other medical professionals. This one is hugely important. I have seen people lose medical coverage because they didn't update their address and they missed an important piece of mail. It can be whether you're using Medi-Cal, VA, healthcare, or a private insurer. You absolutely need to let them know as soon as possible that you're going to be moving. Same with doctors, dentists, pharmacists. If they're ever sending you something and you're not getting it and you need it to continue your services, it's going to be crucial that you receive it. The next set is community. So this one, obviously, maybe not as important as attorneys, insurers, and everything, but still good. Let your friends and family know, obviously your employer, so that your important tax documents at the end of year don't get sent to someone at random and your identifying information is all on there. If you're attending any schools or any alumni associations, things like that, you want to let them know. And then, of course, if you're involved in any charities or anything, in case they send you any material. The next up is home services and utilities. Again, this was kind of covered in the timeline on the last slide, but you want to make sure that ahead of time you call to set up your telephone, internet, and cable services if you're going to be using those, gas and electric, so that it's set to be turned on the day when you move in. And then if you want to do any subscriptions or anything like that. The next is your finances, so you want to let your banks, credit union, whatever it be, know that you are now moving. Credit cards and charge accounts. Obviously, you want to let finance companies and car loans know. And then, again, if you're in school, financial aid offices. This one can be hugely important, too, because if you're trying to change your address or anything like that in terms of getting a new ID, then you will be required to prove that you have moved, and having a bank statement and a credit card statement can be that proof. And then lastly, government agencies. I already mentioned the VA, but obviously that's a hugely important one to get connected with. The USPS, if you fill out the change of address form, that will cover your bases. It's valid for a year, but you can also pay to extend it even longer. The DMV, especially if you're moving states, some states require that you register your car in the new state within a certain timeline, or you might get charged. You want to update your voter registration and the Social Security Administration on where you're at, but ultimately those probably not as important as the VA, the DMV, IRS, and USPS. So this little tutorial is just going to walk you through how to do the USPS change of address. So you open Chrome or Safari and you go on this website. Click where it says Receive on the page. I have an arrow indicating where it is. Click on Learn More after going down the page, so you can scroll down the page a little bit. You'll see where it says Learn More, and you click on that. Then you click on the button that says Change Your Address. It's right down at the bottom of the next page. And then you click on Individual and you complete it that way. So that's overall a quick wrap up, but I'm also going to show you a video of it. So this video is me walking through the process from a clean browser so you can see exactly how it's done. So you can see by starting, I go to USPS.com. This is a little different than the pictures, but it's still the same. So I go down to receive and I click change of address. You see I'm circling it. I'm going to scroll down, click individual, and then you can scroll down and fill out all your information, and it'll ask you for identity verification. Now, one important caveat is that this does cost $1.10. So when you get to the end, make sure that you're not sort of put off and think that it's a scam. As long as it says USPS.com, you're good to go. Next, we shall be covering the inventory. So the inventory for a move is basically just a list of everything you're going to want to have. Again, all of these forms are accessible via your case manager if you want to have them, so you can have a paper copy of this list. I'm just going to break it down here so you can see everything. So for a living room, here's a list of just general things you're going to want. Obviously, carpets, sofas, tables, shelves, that kind of thing. Make sure you have lighting. You don't want to just move into a completely empty apartment with no furniture. And for your bathroom, there's cabinets, mirrors, bath towels, hampers, hair dryers, shavers. One important thing is that Operation Dignity might be able to assist with some of these items, as well as the VA and other community organizations have some funds for furniture. So if you can reach out to your case manager and ask about that, many of these things can be purchased for you, so you don't have to do them yourself if you're in transitional housing. Next up is kitchen and laundry. All these things are things that you're going to want to have in case you get there and you realize you don't have anything to cook. Some of these things might come in your unit, like a dishwasher or a microwave, but again, a lot of organizations work with veterans in transitional housing to get them things like things on this list. For electronics, this obviously not as important as the previous list. These things can come with time, but it's still important to have, your play time. So the electronics, you could get televisions, telephones, DVD players, that kind of thing. Again, not as important, but next is the family room / office. Again, you're going to want more rugs. You might get like a desk for work if you're working from home, or just to have like a clear space, because a lot of things nowadays are done on a laptop. Maybe bookcases and a filing cabinet just to keep yourself organized, a media center, more lamps, etc. Next up is the dining room. Again, you might want a table, chairs. All these things might not be applicable to you either, because you might be moving into a smaller apartment and not have the space for all these things, or separate rooms. So it's important that, you really only get what you have space for and what you actually need. But this is just a all-encapsulating list so that you have it to refer to. And then next up is the bedrooms. Obviously, you want a mattress and a bed frame, and if you can get a nightstand and dresser so that you have a place to put your clothes when they're clean. Again, more lamps and light fixtures, closet accessories, etc. And then lastly is garage and outdoor stuff. So that would be sporting equipment, tools, a lawnmower, ladders, workbench. All that stuff, again, if you're moving into an apartment, it might not be necessary right away, especially because all these sort of things might be handled by your property management company. But in the long term, it can be things that you want to have. And then we're going to go over some final tips for moving. So breathe. Take some time to check in on yourself on move-in day. It can be very stressful, especially because it's a big change and you're trying to make sure you get all your stuff and you want to get settled in. So just make sure you take some time to pause and just think it over. Next is to use your network. Don't be afraid to ask for help. We're all here to help you at Operation Dignity. I'm sure you have some other people, whether it be organizations who can connect you with resources. Just make sure that if you need help with anything, you just reach out to someone, and then maybe someone can assist you. Set aside more time than you think you need. In general, people tend to think that packing will be much quicker than it is, and they also tend to think that moving day will be much quicker than it is, but you never know if something might come up, something breaks, a friend flakes on you and doesn't show up to help you move. So always set aside more time than you think you're going to need, just so that you're safe. And lastly, don't accumulate too much stuff. As I've said a couple times throughout, this is ideally transitional housing and not your last stop, so you want to be able to quickly move over and get yourself set up for when you can start accumulating stuff once you're permanently housed. And overall, that is it. That's all I got for today. This has been the workshop on moving out, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you all have a great day.